pull up the notes that I sent out this morning. I'll move on to section 3 here. So my goal is to finish the chapter this week. We'll test on Monday next week. Monday, next week's a short week. So chapter 3, right? So section 3 here is basically dealing with essentially kind of what we refer to as kind of like the bureaucracy. It's a two-parter here. So for the executive branch to kind of enforce the laws, obviously for the president, it's kind of an extensive job for one person to do. So the president, as any executive, like your boss or whatever like that, tends to delegate authority. Have you ever heard that term before? Delegate authority. It's basically just like kind of giving people particular areas that they focus on, with the ultimate goal to try to kind of complete a task. And every president has like a different agenda, based on their kind of own ideology that kind of work within the framework of the executive branch. All right, and so probably the most famous part of this extensive kind of various kind of like agencies and stuff that are within the executive branch would be the cabinet. All right, and so the cabinet here is just basically kind of these various departments that a lot of times serve as advisors to the president. They also kind of carry out tasks related to specific kind of areas pertaining everything from foreign affairs to legal matters to housing, commerce, interior, all that. Initially, under the first president with Washington, there was essentially 5 executive departments, and that includes the vice president, which are thrown in there. You had a Secretary of State, which was Thomas Jefferson, Secretary of Treasury, who was the famous Alexander Hamilton from the place there. You had Secretary of War, which was Henry Knox, and then the Attorney General kind of served as the lawyer for the executive branch for the government. Was Edmund Randolph, the guy who kind of came up with the whole kind of Virginia plan, if you will. Today there are 15, right? 15 kind of departments that all are kind of specific. Each within there, for the most part, they have what they call a secretary. That's the title that heads of the executive departments here. All right. So I'm gonna play this little video here that kind of talks about, and this is from the Obama era, but it's the same idea. What does the cabinet kind of function as, and kind of as a little insight.
It was fascinating. The Great Wall was very cool.
I was going to say that.
One of the things I'm most proud of is the cabinet we've assembled. I mean, you've got extraordinarily talented people in each of these fields. A lot of them are doing such a good job that they don't meet with me much because they're like the good students in class. They are just handling their business really well. Well, hello everybody. It is good to see you guys.
We try to do a cabinet meeting every 2 months. The meetings run about an hour and a half. What we'll do is talk to a lot of different folks within the White House, the policy folks, the chief of staff's office, the communications office, and find out what are the important initiatives that we want to talk to the cabinet about, and also talk to the cabinet as well about the issues that they think are important to discuss with the president. So there's a series of internal meetings to discuss that, and we hammer out an agenda after that.
Iraq, Afghanistan, future trip, jobs. I think that there should probably be robust discussion of job creation.
This is a huge kind of 6-7 weeks that's coming up, and a lot of the budget and obviously the war decision and a bunch of other things are coming down the pike. So
each president has the discretion to decide who's in this cabinet. There are the heads of the 15 executive departments who are always in the cabinet. These are the people who are in the line of succession after the president and vice president. And then there are a number of folks who have cabinet rank. In our administration, that would be the head of OMB, EPA, the chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors, the U.S. Trade Representative, and the ambassador to the United Nations.
We haven't had coffee service in the past. Maybe because it's an afternoon meeting, they want to give them a little caffeine, I'm not sure.
I've worked for the president since he was in the US Senate, so I'm very used to sitting behind him at meetings. But to now sit in a cabinet meeting, in the historic cabinet room, you're just surrounded by the history of this institution. It's humbling.
Cabinet offices were created as soon as the Constitution was ratified and the government was established in 1789 under the new Constitution.
The first cabinet meeting, I understand, from 1793, the president had his 4 cabinet members there. We now have 25 people around the table. Each of the cabinet members sit in a certain seat depending on when their department was created.
It's still tradition for the cabinet officer to have the opportunity of taking the chair away, himself or herself, to buy the chair from the government. It's one of those great souvenirs of being a cabinet officer.
The cabinet meeting is one of the few times that I'm aware of where the Secret Service allows the entire cabinet to be in one place at one time. As you know, during State of the Union addresses, we typically ask one member of the cabinet to sit out. These are closed sessions, and the president really welcomes frank, unvarnished advice from the body.
I want to, number one, make sure that they know that they have my ear. The second thing is to reinforce a real strong sense of camaraderie that the cabinet members have built among themselves.
When I hug him, it means a lot more than sending him an email.
There still is something to the human interaction that you only get from in-person meetings.
Well, I don't think there's any substitute for the entire cabinet coming together. These cabinet meetings are an incredible way for everybody to communicate, for everyone to really understand what the issues are, and to help us all get on the same page so that we can advance the president's priorities.
Today, we're going to be focusing a lot on jobs because obviously the economy is in such a hole. One of the things that we want to make sure of is that we leave no stone unturned when it comes to helping people get jobs.
What we've typically done is bring the president at the end of the meeting. The cabinet meeting is an important symbol of government at work.
The primary focus of our discussion today, though, had to do with the same thing that Americans sit across kitchen tables all across the country are focused on, and that is jobs and the economy.
You would think that in a world like the one we're living in, where you can communicate with anybody in the world at literally a flick of a mouse or, some other picking up a cell phone, that you wouldn't need a lot of face-to-face meetings. But in fact, I think that it's not only as important as it always was in the era before instantaneous communication, but to some extent even more so that people can look each other in the eye, they can watch the body language, and they can work together to get to the resolution of whatever the issue is. So these cabinet meetings give everybody a chance to do that.
This is one of the biggest problems, that people walk out of here without their Blackberries. So now I have to actually go find out who all these Blackberries belong to. So, all right, so Chu has walked out with Carol walked out.
Little insight there. So this was a cabinet meeting under President Trump. Joe Biden hasn't had one of these yet fully, and so this was I think it was in his first year. Now looking around the table, about a third of those didn't even make it through I guess the first year. There was quite a bit of turnover in the Trump cabinet for whatever reason. All right, and so we have obviously there's a new cabinet. The president gets to appoint the cabinet. It has to be approved by the Senate. All right. So the various departments that you have here, there's kind of a matching section on the test about this. So usually we kind of like with the kind of order of succession, right, within the cabinet, because the order of succession goes vice president, but then speaker, then president pro tem, and then after that it starts with the cabinet. All right. So the Secretary of State is the one responsible for foreign affairs. what they call the State Department, is usually dealing with kind of foreign affairs. I'm gonna have you guys tomorrow. I'm gonna have you guys do a little worksheet on who the current ones are, so I won't give it away. A lot of these guys obviously just got approved. Within the State Department, dealing with foreign affairs, that means anything from like kind of dealing with diplomacy, representing the United States in certain negotiations with countries and stuff like that. We also have within that people who kind of serve as representatives in foreign countries called ambassadors. Right, you have an embassy there, which is the official residence of the ambassadors, and so in many cases, depending on what the country is, some ambassadorships are kind of like political kind of paybacks for people who were, donators to the campaign. Usually countries that aren't usually in the news a lot. Sometimes a lot of these guys are kind of experts in their kind of the area, like in, let's say, the ambassador traditionally in Russia knew something about, like, kind of Lisa Rice was at one point, knew a lot about Russian history and that. Also, you have councils. A consulate is basically, a council is just kind of representing commercial interests. So, like a lot of times you'll have an ambassador in the capital, whatever the country is. Consulships, sometimes you'll have places that will have economic centers. Like, for example, the United States, other countries will send their consulships to New York City. Because New York City oftentimes is really considered the financial center of the United States, if not the world. So like we'll have an ambassador, let's say, in Italy to Rome, but we'll also have a consulship in Milan, which Milan is considered the New York, if you will, of Italy when it comes to that. Also, too, if you apply for a passport, your application will go through the State Department. This gives you the right to travel abroad. Some countries require visas, which are a little bit more stringent in their kind of background checks and such. Countries like, let's say, if you wanted to go to North Korea, you'd have to get a visa. More and more countries have been kind of trying, they've been including more visas as time goes on. Does anybody have passports? Anyone ever got travel abroad? Okay. So how long did it take you to get your passport? Yeah, pretty quick at times. I have my passport. They lost my passport, and I actually had to contact Representative Shimkus here in town to try to find it. There was an incident in 2007 where the company that was doing all the processing, they had a major kind of a breach of information and stuff. So this is, again, you kind of deal with the kind of State Department in that sense. Then you have the Department of Defense, which essentially replaced what was the kind of Department of War in the first cabinet. Sounds a little bit better, not as aggressive. Obviously in charge of the kind of armed forces. Secretary of Defense is the head of that department. The current Secretary of Defense is the first African American to be Secretary of Defense. He also had a stipulation. He has only been retired from as a general. I want to say maybe like 4 years. I think there's a stipulation you have to be like at least 10 years out. So they had to have a special vote on that. Within the Secretary of Defense, there's a kind of advisory council to the president called the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which is essentially the highest ranking members of the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, all that, that kind of advise the president on military affairs and that. These are guys usually, if you see in kind of like news conferences and stuff like that, usually decked out with a whole bunch of medals. This is a major position here with, kind of advising on certain things like, military actions and whatnot. Department of Justice. This is the one that doesn't have the title of secretary. The head of the Department of Justice is the Attorney General. And so they're responsible initially for the enforcement of laws. Right? They act as kind of like the government's attorney to a certain extent. And within the Department of Justice, there are various kind of agencies that have important kind of enforcement roles. Obviously, the big one would be the FBI, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation. This is kind of the highest kind of law enforcement agency that we have here. That's all falls within the Department of Justice. you know, and at times you have like administrations that, you know, like the last administration had to deal with some certain investigations and such like that, where they have to recuse, some people have to recuse themselves. Trump's first attorney general, Jeff Sessions, actually had to recuse himself from an investigation because he had contact with some Russian government officials. Right, that kind of led to some of the investigations here. This is, again, the attorney general is not the president's attorney or lawyer, it's basically the government's. And then you have the Treasury Department, responsible for fiscal policies, federal government. Secretary of Treasury is the head of that. The most famous agency that falls under the kind of the Treasury Department would be the IRS, which right now is tax season. And so they're the ones responsible for collecting federal taxes, which again, remember, was kind of established with the 16th Amendment in 1913. Prior to that, most of the taxes were what we call excise taxes, sales taxes, and such. So this is not necessarily a popular agency within the federal government, within the Treasury Department. But it is significant here, right? Current Secretary of Treasury had served in the Obama administration. Actually, had served as the chairman of the Federal Reserve Board, which is an important agency. I'll talk about tomorrow. Department of Interior. Interior means kind of like kind of nature. This is dealing with conservation, management of like federal lands, like obviously National Park Services are kind of the big one there, monument sites. So if you ever go over to the Arch, the people that work there at the Arch, so you see there, you have a kind of a ranger over there. They work within the Department of Interior. The current Secretary of Interior is actually the first, I believe, first female and first Native American to serve in that position. The Department of Interior was, I think, created after, I want to say, Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy Roosevelt was big on conservation. So a lot of these departments are kind of added as to, like, much like when we talk about the elastic clause, are added as kind of things change and times move on. And then you got Department of Commerce. I think this is the last one, right? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna give you guys time to kick it. These are kind of boring stuff. Department of Commerce is concerned with kind of promoting economic growth. Big thing in there, Census Bureau, Patent and Trademark Office, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Agency, National Weather Service, all right, which strangely enough going to all fall within the Commerce Department. So I could have probably finished the whole thing. So it's Tuesday, so I'll let you guys kick it. I'll finish tomorrow. I'll finish the rest of the cabinets, and then we're going to do a little kind of like a worksheet on trying to find the various cabinet heads and a little bit of information about that.